Let's go, baby. Let's go. It is Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. Last one on the face of the planet. Welcome into the Hard Count. This is one of, if not my favorite show that we do throughout the entirety of the year. Because on today's show, we're predicting a conference champion for the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12. We're predicting the entire college football playoff field. We're predicting a Heisman Trophy winner. We're predicting a national freaking champion. By the reality that we made it to this show, we made it to college football season. Fall camp opens up this week. Tons of intel coming your way throughout the course of the next few weeks. But today, it's time to call our shot. Glad to have you all a part of this. If you haven't yet subscribed, now is the time. Quick little nugget too here. We're going to make a lot of predictions today. I just told you. If you have issues with those, get at us at the voicemail, 629-888-3931. Want to hear from y'all, but we're going to go conference by conference here. This is a beautiful thing. I am so fired up. If I seem jittery, if I seem a little bit extra juiced up, I mean, that's because I am, man. Like, it's our time. There is no more time for messing around. It's time to predict some college football outcomes, all right? Let's start with the SEC. What's it going to take to win the SEC? Because it's a weird climate. Isn't it? Like, I was on Radio Row during SEC Media Days and talking to a lot of different people. Got a great question. Someone said, this is the year of blank in the SEC. Fill in the blank, JD. Thought about it for a second. Not too long because we were on the air, but I thought about it for a second, and I was like, you know what? This is the year of uncertainty. The reason why, we've been beaten to death, the exact same talking point all off season long. We don't know a lot of these top quarterbacks at top institutions across the SEC. Like the teams that you would typically coin as the big dogs or the favorites in Vegas, like Texas favored to win the conference, they have a new starting quarterback in Arch Manning. Georgia, same deal with Gunnar Stockton. Alabama, think it's Ty Simpson. No real idea. Tennessee, they're breaking a new quarterback after making the playoff last year, but he didn't get spring practice, and Joey Aguilar. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. What's going to make a massive impact on determining who actually wins this conference is which roster around a new starting quarterback allows for the smoothest learning curve. Another way to say that, who has the best spotter in the conference? All right, because if you're asking your quarterback to jump on that bench and throw up 2-3 plates from game one, like, I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying you might pull something. Might not be the smoothest way to go about doing things. But if your defense at Texas can give Arch Manning some time to figure it out. Okay, hey, Arch, don't need 300 yards against Ohio State. Take it easy. Couple of throws here, throws there that are on the money. Play in rhythm, play on time. You don't have to make the big play. Like, just let the game come to you. We're going to be in good shape. Same thing at Georgia. Same thing at Alabama. You see where I'm going with this. Whoever gives that quarterback the opportunity to eventually have it click come like October, then the quarterback obviously has to go do it. But whichever roster is best positioned to do that, or whichever roster allows the quarterback to do that, of those teams that are breaking in new dudes, that's going to, I think, have a massive impact on this conference title race. Now, I say that to also make sure we mention there's a lot of teams in this conference that are sitting back and saying, well, we got our guy. We feel good about our dude. LSU probably the leading example of this. Garrett Nussmeier, he came back. He told us at SEC Media Days he came back to lead LSU to a national championship. That's what it's about this year. So you would have to think in doing that, you'd probably pick up an SEC title along the way. Is that happening? I don't know, but I mean, it feels like this is the year to go do it. Like, I mean, Florida, same thing. Georgia's got a new quarterback. Texas got a new quarterback. Florida, you bring back DJ Lagway. And I don't want to give my opinion on that right now, but I am just saying from a fan base level in Gainesville, you think you have a dude to go get it done. The opportunity is right freaking there. A&M, same thing with Marcel Reed. Oklahoma, we talked ad nauseum around Oklahoma and John Mateer. Now, I know they're still breaking him in, and he technically, I guess, qualifies as a new starter for that football team, but not a new offense for him. Like Oklahoma, I'm just saying, they could be one of those teams. South Carolina, Lenora Sellers, I've told you how great I feel about that dude and his ability. There is definitely a hypothetical reality we could live in where Lenora Sellers just has a Heisman Trophy level season, takes the year over, and just Jan sports South Carolina all the way to the college football playoff, and dare I say, maybe to Atlanta. Is that happening? I don't know, but this is the year. You hear what I'm saying? This is the year where you take some of those teams that maybe aren't the usual suspects or teams that were near the top of the standings last year to kind of strike because of the fact that they feel good about who they have at quarterback, or at the very least, they have some certainty at quarterback. Now, I think it's also important for us to mention this. who can avoid stubbing their toe? And that's kind of an obvious thing to say when you talk about the conference title race or a college football playoff race. But last year, dog, it was a mixer at Club 9-3. Ole Miss, why were you in the Club 9-3? Because you stubbed your toe to freaking Kentucky. I love Kentucky. My heart is with KSR. Every fiber of my being loves that site. But, like, you shouldn't lose to Kentucky, Ole Miss, when you got a first-round quarterback in Jackson Dart. I digress. South Carolina, same deal. Started the year slow. Stubbed their toe. I mean, I say stub their toe, not probably the right way to say that, but had some losses they probably otherwise wouldn't have had if they had Lenore Sellers at his level in November the entirety of the season. So you're on the back door of the college football playoff, banging, trying to get in. Wasn't happening. Sorry, 9-3 for you at that mixer. Alabama losing to Vandy and Oklahoma. If Alabama wins the games where they're the more talented football team, they're 11-1 in the college football playoff a year ago. However, it wasn't how it went. So I think stubbing your toe, a lot of that goes to culture and focus and all those things, which it's hard to quantify right now. I think we have to look at depth if we want to talk about not stubbing your toe, especially in the month of late October and into November. Like, that's going to, I think, position these teams to be in Atlanta for the SEC title game in and of itself. So who can strain, who can push through the furthest, who can have that too deep step up when they need it to the most late in the season. That's going to, I think, have a massive impact on what I just said, who plays for the conference championship. You don't believe me? Look at who played for the conference championship last year. We were all talking about, who's going to play for the SEC, and it's this team, it's that team, and it's madness. It's A&M and Texas playing for a spot in the conference, and then it's the two deepest teams in the conference with Texas and Georgia at the end of that thing. Depth matters in all of college football, but especially in the SEC. All right? So, who's playing for the conference championship? I'm going to take the two teams that I think, based on everything I just told you, are best positioned to be in Atlanta. I told you a lot of new quarterbacks, not at LSU. Garrett Nussmeier went for 4,000 yards last year without a run game. Just carried LSU's offense. Was phenomenal. Goes into his second year in Joe Sloan's system. They got him better weapons. I think that defense is a lot better than most folks would like to give credit. They have some continuity under Blake Baker. I love everything around LSU, plus the top two portal class that they brought in, plus the workable schedule. You look at LSU's schedule, there is no real super grimy, gritty stretch where you say, massive letdown spot there. Oh, hey, that's tough. They got Bama, and then they got to play Tech. There's no crazy stretch there for LSU to where I say, all right, if they can just find a way to grit their teeth and split, I don't have any stretch on LSU's schedule that worries me all that much. So that plus the most proven thing in all of college football at quarterback and Garrett Nussmeier, they will be in Atlanta. Who are they going to play? They're going to play Texas. What I just said, man, they have, I think, established a gap from a talent and depth standpoint between themselves and everyone else on their schedule not named Georgia. Reason why? Steve Sarkisian. And we say this a lot, but I know a lot of y'all are going to watch this show because this is our prediction show, so thank you for that. Again, make sure you subscribe. But Steve Sarkisian, when he got to Texas, reputation was QB guru, offensive play caller, all those things. That wasn't Texas's identity last year. Quinn Ewers is out there playing with half an oblique a season ago, and they are just off-roading their way to playing in Atlanta for the SEC championship. They have recruited a top-tier line of scrimmage, and I know they lost a lot of guys from that offensive line last year. Steve Sarkisian is not worried about it. How do I know that? They didn't go to the portal and just rebuild that offensive line. They could have. Hear me clearly. Texas, if they wanted to, they got the greenbacks to go do that. Steve Sarkisian did not do that. I think they have the best combination of top-tier quarterback, top-tier roster, quite frankly, top-tier head coach who's taken two different teams to the college football playoff the last 2 years in two different formats. You hear what I'm saying? I think Texas and their depth is a massive reason why they get to LSU's, or they get to play LSU rather in Atlanta for the SEC championship. So, who wins the SEC? Because Texas and LSU, by them both playing for the conference title, pretty safe to assume they're both making the college football playoff in this scenario we've dialed up here. Man, it just feels like LSU's year to me. At least as far as the conference slate and conference title game is concerned, it just feels like LSU's year to me. And I think Texas is going to be really freaking good. But if you put Texas and LSU on the same field after they've both beaten each other up and beaten themselves up for the entirety of 12 games, and they meet in Atlanta for the conference, I'm going to go ahead and say I lean towards Garrett Nussmeier as the quarterback I trust more. Why? Because Garrett Nussmeier has done this all for 1 year already. To keep it a buck, failed at it. Like LSU was thinking college football playoff towards the end of October when they played A&M. Failed at it. Why? Took their eye off the ball. You point to Garrett Nussmeier and some decision-making issues. The Alabama game was egregious when they came to Baton Rouge and took that thing over. He knows what it feels like to fail. And I think because of that, you have a great learning opportunity that was last year. Look in the mirror, get it right. You know what it feels like now. And I think that him walking into this spot against Texas, as the quarterback in this spot against Texas, the most important part of this whole equation, I think that makes the difference. Now you're saying, JD, but Texas, can't you say the same thing for them? Like they lost last year in the conference title game to Georgia. Don't they have that learning opportunity? They do, but there's a lot of pieces you're replacing, especially on the offense, breaking a new quarterback. The actual people on the field, to me, the learning curve there and the newness you're going to feel in that spot, I just lean LSU here. I just lean LSU. So we'll take LSU to win the SEC in 2025. Feel pretty good about doing it. All right, so let's move right along here. What about the ACC? The ACC it's going to be a fun year, dude. I'm excited. I want to make sure we get this ironed out there at the top. From a pure talent level standpoint, roster and intangibles and all those things, right now it is Clemson and everyone else. It's the Clemson Tigers and everyone else. Number one returning production, which is great. You bring back a quarterback going into year 3 in the system in Cade Klubnik, and people I think beat those talking points to death, and it's understandable and fair to do so, but what does that actually mean when you have top returning production? What does it actually mean when you have a quarterback who's in his 3rd year in the system and all that? It means that you have a group of individuals on that roster that are mature. Mature football teams, they don't lose games they're not supposed to lose. So we just had this whole conversation around, SEC and the toe stubbing and 9-3 and all that. I don't think that's going to be Clemson this year because you have adults that are going to handle their business. Adults, what do? Pretty much stay the same every single day at their job as much as humanly possible. Or at least the standard deviations aren't 3 to 4, swinging in opposite directions. It's if they have an off day, it's it was an off day, but it was an off day for Clemson where they still won the game by double-digit points with what this roster is supposed to be. So to get this out of the way right here off the top, I think Clemson is in Charlotte for the ACC title game. Major caveat, I need consistency from Cade Klubnik. He was great last year from a numbers perspective, but if you go back and look at the game log, there's a couple of games where you're those completion numbers are a little bit all over the place. I mean, over the course of the year, the average turned out great. He was top 15 in terms of QBR, had a phenomenal year by the numbers, but you look at game by game, a couple of spots where I need Cade Klubnik to be a touch more dialed in for them to be a team that wins the ACC, but I think they're here nor there. So now here's how I feel about the ACC outside of Clemson. Now, my wife doesn't really watch The Bachelor super intensely, but it's been on a couple of times in the house, and whenever it's on, it amazes me. They all fall in love so quickly. They go, hey, can I steal you for a second? And then 30 seconds later, it's she's the one. We're going to build a life together. It's kind of how I feel about the ACC. I have no problem falling in love with any of these teams. Pitt, 7-3 with Eli Holstein. If he's healthy. Cade Bell, I'm first team all Cade Bell stamp. Sure, why not Pitt? Louisville. Oh, you mean ACC Lane Kiffin and Jeff Brom? I mean, they just pretty much rebuild their roster every single year via the portal. Got sweet uniforms out there. Maybe Jack Harlow's at a game. I don't know. Louisville, yeah, sure. Let's build a life together. SMU, Kevin Jennings. You know how fun it is to watch Kevin Jennings play football? Mr. Up and to the Right, Rhett Lashley, with what he's done since he's gotten out there to Highland. SMU, yeah, I can get behind SMU. They made the playoff last year. You kidding me? Syracuse. Don't get me started on Syracuse. Fran Brown, Mr. Dart. Okay, yeah, I digress. Georgia Tech, Haynes My King out there in Atlanta. All right, I'm just saying, brother. Duke, sure. Now, Florida State, hang on. I'm not ready to fall for Florida State just yet. So let's pump the brakes a little bit. We still have some standards around here. I love Florida State. I hope Florida State gets back to a spot where they could compete for the ACC, but I'm not 10 toes down on Florida State just yet. So I think when you actually break down how you process the ACC, you watching this, you kind of tell yourself what you think about the conference, don't you? Because when you go schedule by schedule for some of these teams, what is the number one thing that 9 times out of 10 you're looking for off the top? Do they play Clemson? Do they play Miami? Why do you say that? Because those are the 2 teams that by the recruiting numbers and by the portal numbers are going to be your most talented teams in the conference. So you're kind of already telling yourself, hey, we think Miami's maybe a top-tier team. The middle tier, to what I just said, all those teams I spoke to, my concern is that they might just cannibalize each other. I'd love to pick a Pitt to find their way into the conference title game, but Pitt's at Florida State, at Syracuse, at Georgia Tech. Louisville, I just told you, Louisville I think has the third best odds to win the conference. They're at Pitt, they're at SMU. The next most favorable path, I think, in the ACC is Georgia Tech. I mean, they got a tricky 4-game stretch where they play Va Tech at Duke, they play Syracuse, and they're at NC State. Like, I'm not saying it can't happen, but when you look at the actual schedule breakdown, as fun as those teams would be to fall in love with, I have a hard time seeing them not just beat the crap out of each other. So with that being said, in July, man, I trust quarterbacks. So I got Clemson in the ACC title game. I think they're going to see none other than the Miami Hurricanes. You say, JD, you do this every year. You pick the U every single year, man. I mean, I'm ready to get hurt again. That's all I'm here to say. Like I just said, in July, I picked quarterbacks, and I think the best quarterbacks in the conference are Cade Klubnik and Carson Beck. Say what you want about last year, the numbers, this and that. Like, I mean, your numbers are going to be a little bit worse, too, when you lead America in drops as a receiving corps. So neither here nor there. I love the fact that they revamped that defense. Quite frankly, what you had last year just wasn't working. Wasn't awful all the time, but when it was bad, it was bad. And it was bad a lot in the first half of games, and you ask Cam Ward to just go put on the cape and save you. And that can't be the way that you compete this year. And Mario Cristobal knows that. That's why they brought in Corey Heatherman and brought in some other portal pieces and a whole new defensive staff. So what I think is important to note about Miami, why were they so hit and miss last year? Why were they so spotty last year, to put it another way? I think some of that you point to the culture. Now, it was year 3, and year 3 you should be a little bit more solidified, but most importantly here, you have, I think, true leaders that Mario Cristobal recruited out of high school now going into their 3rd year in the program. It's Cristobal's 4th year, but like the Francis Mawanoas, like the Reuben Baines, the true like culture installers, I think those guys now in that locker room will have, not that they didn't have pull before, but I think have more of a say as to how this team operates and how they run. As a coach, as a staff, you can set a culture, but it's installed by your locker room. And I think the locker room at Miami is now in a better place. Now, I say all that to also mention Miami needs to, this is non-negotiable, needs to have a professional mindset with the transfers they brought in, Carson Beck included. All right, Keelan Marion, got to have it. Got to have that pro mindset. What I just said about Clemson has to be there for Miami. You need to be the same team or as close as possible to the same team every single week. Because for Miami, they are the second most talented team in the ACC. For my money. Like that's how I see this whole thing breaking down. Schedule-wise, no Clemson on there. They get Louisville at home. Everyone else like doesn't really worry me all that much from a matchup perspective for Miami within the conference. Now, when it comes to that title game, I think the difference in this game is the continuity that Clemson has. Because I love the portal pieces from Miami. I think it was a necessary move to make, but at the end of the day, I think that defense that Clemson has and the temperature they're going to play with this year, it's going to be very throwback Clemson. Remember those old Clemson teams where Brent Venables is on the sideline and like poor guy who's the get-back coach for Brent Venables is like hanging on for dear life every single snap. It felt like trying to keep him off the numbers. I don't know if Tom Allen is quite that aggressive, but I think his defense will play with that level of aggression. They are littered with NFL draft picks on that side of the football. I think that makes the difference. I think they end up getting the better of Miami in the ACC title game. I think Clemson is your ACC champion, and they lock up a bid to the college football playoff by nature of doing that. All right? So more on the college football playoff a little bit later in this show, but that game is going to be big for fans of the ACC when it comes to their bids in that 12-team field. All right. How you go big on big, man? Let's go Big 10, then Big 12. The Big 10 is going to be a lot of fun, dude. Like, every conference in college football is a blast, but I just get excited looking down this list of teams because, well, first of all, 2 of the 3 top odds to win the conference are breaking a new quarterback with 5 stars next to his name. Ohio State and Julian Sayin, I'm assuming is going to win that job. Dangerous to assume right now, but I'm going to go ahead and make that call right now. Oregon and Dante Moore, and then for Penn State, they got Drew Aller, who's back for another year in Happy Valley. But it's curious to break all 3 down because I think they all have just different challenges about themselves. Like for Ohio State, everyone's talking about complacency this, complacency that, new coordinators, and I get that, but I think the newness for Ohio State in a roundabout way is the advantage to the potential obstacles people keep speaking to with them. Because you got a lot of dudes now in Brian Hartline, and if it's Sayin, great. If it's Keenholz, great. There are a lot of guys now with something to prove. You have a nice combo there of finishing the trip last year, but not checking all your boxes last year at the same time. Like, hear me clearly. That Michigan loss for that locker room still stings, and it should sting. It's unacceptable for them to lose to that football team that many times in a row. They get that. They understand that. And I wonder now if last year's shortcomings in that game and how they propelled through the playoff doesn't maybe carry over to this squad and the feeling internally in Columbus. But bottom line, if they can fight complacency, and I think they will, Ohio State is going to be a wagon. For Oregon, we talk about the newness for them. It's still a top-tier roster in the Big Ten. Like, make no mistake about it. This is the year where you see the dividends of how Dan Lanning has recruited out there in Eugene. Since he joined the conference, or I guess since he got to Oregon, and since Oregon's been in the conference, they have been a team that's recruited in the top 2 of the Big Ten. Even if you go back to the years where Oregon was in the Pac-12, when Dan Lanning got there, if you want to compare the recruiting rankings, they've recruited in the top 2 in the Big Ten. So just because you don't know all the names, just because we haven't seen some of the guys that have been living on that 2 deep step into the light here, that's going to be a massive advantage for them. And to put it in another way, like, they have a very, very workable schedule, which we'll talk about here a little bit later. Now, for Penn State, I want to talk about the top 3 odds here. So that's why we're talking about Penn State, and I want to talk about some other teams, obviously. Everyone's saying this is the year. Thing is, this is like the 3rd year in a row we've said this is the year. And it's not wrong to say that, because on paper, I see where everyone's coming from. Drew Aller's back. James Franklin, say what you want about him in big games, still one of the best coaches in college football. I mean, very quietly won 2 college football playoff games a year ago, and no one wants to give him credit. Is this the year for Penn State? It could be. And if it is, it's because Drew Aller elevates and does something that we haven't seen from him just yet, which is get on my back. Doesn't matter what they have on their roster. You have me. Let's go win the football game. If you see that from Penn State this year, that's why Penn State ends up being a team that's playing the national championship and why they would win the Big Ten in that scenario. But so that's the top tier, but the scrappy tier is where it gets fun, man. Like, how scrappy is the scrappy tier? Is, I guess, my question here. Because Michigan and, like, the roster math is just a thing of beauty. We say it a lot, but you beat Ohio State and Alabama throwing for double-digit yards. We've talked about that stat ad nauseum. That should never happen again for Michigan. As long as Bryce Underwood's there, that should never happen again. And plus that defense, with how good they were, like, the schedule's workable for Michigan as well. There really, I think, on paper, is a lot of reason to project Michigan to play in the conference championship and then go have a chance to play in the college football playoff. Nebraska, people roll their eyes. Year 3, Matt Rule, death taxes and him taking a massive jump in year 3 at both Temple and at Baylor. Took over operations that won like 1 or 2 games their first year. Played for the conference their 3rd year. Raiola's back. Got to know seeing Dana Holgerson, who speaks QB fluently. I'm just saying. Washington. I love Washington. A lot of their big games at home. Damon Williams is a psychopath at quarterback. I mean, just first team all fun to watch at quarterback. Iowa, Penn State, and Oregon both at home. USC, they're running hot. So there's a lot there. Here's what I want to make sure we get out of the way, though. As much as I love the scrappy tier, there's going to be a couple of teams that get lumped into the scrappy tier that I just want to just cut off access to right now. That's Illinois, it's Indiana. Not saying they can't both go win 8 games, 9 games, and ruin somebody's November, but we keep getting this, discussion of, well, Illinois is last year's Indiana. No, they're not, dude. They're not. They're not. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But how we feel right now in July, I'm not. They were 5-1 in one-score games last year. 5-1. That's not going to carry over to the next year. Indiana made the playoff last year. I have a SIG hoodie, and not a hoodie that I smoke cigarettes in. I have a hoodie that is the CIG in the Big Ten Conference font, and it's sick, and I love it, and we got it from some of our friends out there, but I don't think they're going to have the same magic from last year to this year. Reason being, you play a bunch of teams that weren't on your schedule last year that are on your schedule this year. Iowa, Oregon, I don't think that's going to carry over. So I like those teams, but when you tell me they're going to be teams that are in Indy for the conference title game, I'm going to say, no, not so fast, my friend. Shout out Lee Corso. So both Oregon and Penn State, I think, will make the college football playoff. But as it stands right now, I think Oregon wins that game on the road and finds themselves in the Big Ten championship game against Ohio State. Now, a little rematch from the Rose Bowl. Day versus Lanning round 3 should be a good time. I think Ohio State wins this game for the same reason they won the Rose Bowl. Not to make it overly simplistic, but Jeremiah Smith is the best player in college football. He is a creative player. He's a freak show. He is going to be better than he was last year based on his overall acclimation to college football, learning the nuances of the game, how they utilize him. So I think that when you look at some of the new pieces Oregon's breaking in as well, I could see that playing a factor. But at this point, I think Ohio State is going to be a little bit hungry. Being in the Big Ten title game, something that Ryan Day hasn't been to in a minute. And I think that they ultimately check that box, get the Big Ten title monkey of sorts off their back, and Ohio State is your Big Ten champion in the year of 2025. Now, we saved the most chaotic title race for last, and that is the Big 12. You know how chaotic it's going to be is it's so chaotic that nobody in the media had an official pick on this at Big 12 Media Days. They canceled it. They said the team that was picked to finish last year won the conference. We're done with this. Just forget it. Forget it. We're not doing it this year. Big 12 is the land of opportunity. And I say all that, but we also need to make sure we mention there's not a lot of unknowns when you look at the roster side of things for the Big 12. I've just waxed poetic here about new quarterbacks in the SEC, new quarterbacks in the Big 10. You got 8 returning starters in the Big 12. 8 of them. A lot of those dudes can play at a high level too. So my question in terms of answering what it's going to take to win the Big 12, which of those experienced quarterbacks going into another year starting in college football plays like it? We've seen this happen a lot. You have a good year, read your press clippings, get verified on Twitter, good for you, and then you fall off a cliff and your production goes way down and you're playing in the Bad Boys Mower Gasparilla Bowl. That's kind of how this whole thing can potentially happen. So which of these quarterbacks makes that difference? I do think that the reason why this is so important to mention, outside of the quarterback position, the Big 12 kind of recruits at the same level. And that's not knocking the Big 12, but it's just the reality. At the roster level, a lot of these teams should be pretty comparable. Okay, so with that being said, what does that mean when you watch the Big 12 on Saturdays? 1, a lot of good football games. 2, I'm going to lean a lot of the time when we pick games in the fall, who has the better quarterback? Who has the hot hand at quarterback? Because if roster level is equal, the dude touching the football every single play and who has a better one of those is who I'm going to pick to win the football game for the most part here. Now, a quick subplot, because I mentioned everyone's roster is kind of the same. You kind of recruit a lot of the same players, whatever. A subplot to monitor here that could blow this entire narrative up is Texas Tech. All right, now Texas Tech was an 8-win team last year, top 5 in returning production. They are well coached, first team all hangout, first all team, just phenomenal human being, and Joey McGuire. Got that going for them. They've just, for fun, added 20 transfers. I shouldn't say for fun. For a pretty good NIL bag and for some great resources and for a chance to go push, win the Big 12, make the college football playoff, they have the number 1 transfer portal class in America right now. How much does that soup up Texas Tech? Because if it soups them up to the point where they're just the best team in the conference and there's a noticeable talent gap, well, then that changes our discussion around who wins the Big 12 completely, right? If not, then I think you'll get your standard and what you've come to expect from the Big 12 kind of product, which is still phenomenal and great football, but I think that's something to monitor a little bit here, a sneaky storyline. There should be 0 surprises in this conference in the sense that you should expect surprises every single week, right? It just spin the wheel. Spin the wheel every single week, and whatever it lands on, it could definitely be a team that wins the conference, all right? Arizona State is a team that I picked, back in the wintertime to win the conference in Arizona State. Sam Leavitt, Kenny Dillingham, they're fun. They got great returning production. Avery Johnson, I've said many times, the best lettuce in college football. If he takes another step, him and Dylan Edwards could be an absolute force in that backfield together. Chris Kleiman, that team's always going to be gritty. Same deal with Iowa State. Matt Campbell, Rocco Becht, could talk myself into them. Utah and Kyle Whittingham. If you think that he's going out like how he did last year, where they miss a bowl game, you are very, very much so misled. Just go turn on Devin Dampier's highlights last year, and you will be very much so impressed, entertained, and feel optimistic about Utah football. Remember how last year went, though, in the Big 12. It came down to November, right? That was when Caden and I first joined forces on this show, and one of our first shows together was trying to make sense of the Big 12 title race. And Caden and I get together in the office. He sits down, and he has a full quadratic formula like a full, like, legitimately show your work kind of math problem as to how the Big 12 could break. And it was like 2 weeks left to go in the season. If it's that wide open, and I think it will be that wide open, what should we pay attention to? Who you have on your schedule in the month of November. All right, now in the month of November, I think the two best schedules are Baylor and TCU. Baylor, they play Arizona State and Kansas State at home before the month of November, so just a quick, thing to think about there. But then in November, they play UCF, they get a bye, they play Utah, they play at Arizona, and they play Houston. I told you, I think Utah will be much improved. But based on those teams right now, Baylor doesn't play a team that made a bowl game last year in the month of November. All right? Not a bad spot to be sitting with all the returning production that Baylor has and a freaking dude at quarterback in Sawyer Robertson. And oh, by the way, one of the best young running backs in the entire country in Washington, went over 1,000 yards last year. Neither here nor there. TCU, by the way, they have a bye to start November. They play Iowa State, but they get Iowa State after they just played Arizona State. So letdown spot for Iowa State. Got to come to Fort Worth. They're at BYU. They're at Houston. They play Cincy. Now, at BYU could always be tricky, but you know who plays quarterback for BYU right now? I don't know. I don't think Kalani Sitake knows. Not a bad spot for TCU to be in. Plus, Josh Hoover, what I just said, dog at quarterback. I think he takes the next step. So I think that's your conference title game in Jerry World between Baylor and TCU. You said, JD, you pick Arizona State to win the conference, though, in the month of, January. Why are you flipping on us now? February. Why are you flipping on us now? If kids can flip their commitment right now, we're going to flip our pick. So I got Baylor and TCU playing in the conference title game. And when I look at how that matchup would potentially play out, I think the multiple nature of what Baylor has on offense. I told you, Washington on the ground. Dave Aranda's a defensive guy. They're going to be stout on that side of the football. Sawyer Robertson, another year in the system. I think there is so many ways for Baylor to win football games. As much as I love TCU, they're a little bit more live by the sword, die by the sword when it comes to how they push the football downfield and what Josh Hoover brings. Not me saying he couldn't take over and TCU's your Big 12 champion, but I think in this spot, Baylor, the multiple ways they can do it, the continuity they have on that staff, Dave Aranda and the stoic nature. I was in the building last time they won the Big 12 over Oklahoma State. That incredible 4th and goal stand from McVay getting a tackle at the corner. Dave Aranda got a Gatorade bath, and he didn't even flinch. Just like full, 40-degree Gatorade on his back. I think it was orange. No emotion. Just walked out to midfield after that stop. Could be a similar vibe for Baylor in 2025. I'm going to take them to win the Big 12 and make the college football playoff because of that. All right, so Baylor is your Big 12 champion. So to recap it here, our conference title race, as it stands right now, LSU, they win the SEC. Ohio State, they win the Big 10. In the Big 12, I'm taking Baylor. I just told you. In the ACC, I'm taking Clemson. So how the college football calendar goes, of course, we'll get to the college football playoff here in a second, but after we get to the regular season and the conference championships, I got the Heisman to talk about. And it would be a disservice, it would be irresponsible of us to not just give you our prediction real quick here for our Heisman Trophy finalists and then who we think is ultimately going to win the Heisman Trophy. I got 4 finalists and then a winner of those 4 finalists. Here's how I'm breaking this down, though. To win the Heisman Trophy, I think you need 2 major factors. 1, opportunities to ball. What I mean by that is you have to be in a good system or a good situation to be able to put up good numbers and to have a lot of production. I love Diego Pavia, but the reality of it is the way that system is designed at Vanderbilt, they're going to run the football a fair amount. He's not going to go for 4,000 yards through the air. He might, but it would surprise me. That's not what the system is built to do. Second thing you need, late stages, right? Late stages. In the month of November, that's when the Heisman Trophy is won. One nice little runway, nice little build up in the months of September or October, but by November, that's when you play your best football. And you better play your best football with everyone watching. How many games do you have where everyone's watching? We'll break it down right now. First Heisman finalist to unpack, Dante Moore at Oregon. Listen, man, the last 2 quarterbacks at Oregon, Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel, both showed up in New York for the Heisman Trophy. It is very clear. Speaking to system, if you do what Will Stein says, you do numbers, you win football games, people watch your games, you go to New York. Pretty straightforward. I told you the schedule is very workable. No Ohio State, no Michigan for Oregon. They're going to be, I think, more talented than everyone they play in the regular season. There is nothing that Dylan Gabriel or Bo Nix physically did that Dante Moore can't do. There's no like, oh man, but just like Bo Nix can throw that route to the field. So Dante Moore has all that talent and then some. I'm not saying he's more talented than Bo Nix, but I'm just saying he has those tools to run the system at the highest level. So that's one part of this. The other part of this is the moments. He finishes in November with USC at Washington, and I think he's going to play in the Big Ten title game. If he balls on those 3 stages, Dante Moore, take a bow. Heisman Trophy will be yours. Now, Lenoris Sellers, I just told you all of the prerequisites I have. He's kind of a rule breaker in this way because I think that his schedule, it presents some opportunities. I don't love South Carolina in those games. But remember, like, when Jaden Daniels was just ripping off huge games at the end of 2023? Like Travis Hunter, same thing. Like, Colorado was in the college football playoff hunt, but, like, didn't break that way. Neither of those dudes played for teams that made the playoff, but they were just so freaking good where you're like, we all have eyes, right? Like, I'm pretty harsh on Heisman Trophy voters. I think a lot of them don't do their due diligence and watch the football games and watch those players. I think they kind of just box score scout. But even if you're just box score scouting, Lenoris Sellers, I think, is going to do crazy numbers this year. Crazy numbers. So he's going to be a Heisman Trophy finalist. Jeremiah Smith, I feel the same way about Jeremiah Smith as I feel about ice cream sandwiches. They're always good. They're good anywhere. All right? Like, I'll eat an ice cream sandwich in a blizzard, dude. It still hits different. Summer day in July. Like you always go with an ice cream sandwich. Jeremiah Smith is the ice cream sandwich of college football. New quarterback, don't care. New play caller, care even less. He's going to have triple coverage. Cool, throw it to him. Ice cream sandwich, good all the time, good anywhere. He has a chance now, stage-wise, for his campaign to get rolling November 1 against Penn State. That'll have a lot of eyeballs. And then, obviously, the game against Michigan and the Big Ten title game, which I think they will win and play in, will be very, very big for his Heisman candidacy and will have a lot of eyeballs. Now, last finalist here before we tell you our winner, Garrett Nussmeier. I told you about him earlier in the show, man. He threw for 4,000 yards with no run game. He's got a running back behind him with, like, dislocated toes. Assuming that's not the case this year, he told us SC Media Days the run game will be better. That's only going to set him up for more success. And his weapons are ridiculous. Again, going back to Media Days, he told us we don't have a receiver that runs under or that runs over a 4.4. Excuse me. Even if he's capping, even if he's lying to us, that's still pretty impressive for it to even be like potentially true. And even if it's not true, I love Barry and Brown. I love Nick Anderson. I love Aaron Anderson. I love Trey Green. There's a lot of pieces there for him to throw the football to. I think he'll have a huge year, his second year in the system for Joe Sloan. And then in terms of stages, I think they're going to play for and win the SEC championship. So there's that for you in terms of stages. Now, the winner of the Heisman Trophy, for those of you that want to put in your bets right now, it's kind of been a quarterback award over the course of the last few years. I know Travis Hunter won it last year, but it's usually a quarterback award historically. The last true receiver to win the Heisman Trophy was Devontae Smith during that COVID year, right, for Alabama. How did he get utilized? Pretty much every single way you could utilize a wide receiver. Line him up in the slot, put him in motion, put him in the backfield. Jeremiah Smith, I think, will have that level of usage this year at Ohio State. A big reason why his receiver coach now calling the plays. You don't think a former NFL wide receiver in Brian Hartline's not going to throw the ball a little bit more? You don't think Julian Sayin, his first year as the starter, or Lincoln Kienholz, I don't care, the first year as the starter, when it's 3rd and 7+, who are you throwing the football to? Who are you trying to throw the football to? Probably that Bionicle on the far left hash, wearing number 4, right? So, like, we're going to see him do huge numbers. They're going to move him all over the field. I think that when you watch them against Notre Dame, where you sent him in motion on the goal line and he got that little swing pass to get in the end zone, that, to me, was kind of a preview to the movie we'll get in 2025. Jeremiah Smith, it's hard for receivers to do it, but he's different. He's special. He will win the Heisman Trophy in 2025. Go ahead and lock that in out there in Las Vegas. All right, so a lot of predictions under our belt now. Jeremiah Smith to win the Heisman Trophy. I don't believe he's got like the best odds right now. That goes to the quarterbacks, but I'll tell you what, it's only going to get worse when it comes to the odds you can get on his Heisman Trophy candidacy. I don't know, I'll look against Texas week 1, but it doesn't matter about week 1. It matters about what you do in November, and it's all lined up for him to have a massive, massive season. Okay, so back to how we think this season is going to go. It's playoff time, baby. If you're listening on podcasts, rubbing my hands together because we're fired up. Who's in? Who makes the college football playoff? We told you our champions already, but that's only 4 teams, man. It doesn't dictate the entire field. We still got 8 spots to fill in. So let's go from the number 1 seed all the way down to the number 12 seed as to who we think is making the college football playoff. Important to note here, the college football playoff will be straight seeding this year. So remember last year we're in here reacting to the playoff rankings and we're talking about, well, this team ranked 3rd, but they could be actually seeded 7th. We're doing it much more common sense this year, so shout out common sense. Let's break this down right now. Before we do that, make sure you are subscribed. College football year-round, college football, nothing but college football. The great part about this show, though, I told you college football year-round, it's about to actually be college football season. So we're taking that dial and cranking it up a few more notches when it comes to the content we're doing here, the volume of content we're doing here. The bottom line, if you love college football, make sure you're subscribed, and we appreciate y'all in advance for doing so. So, the top seed in the playoff, it's going to be LSU. They're your SEC champ. I think they'll finish with a record of 11-1. I think they will have the best resume when it comes to ranked wins across the board here of the conference champions. So LSU is your number 1 seed, followed by the Big Ten champ, Ohio State. I think they will also be 11-1. And it's not to knock them. It's just a matter of the resume and what they have available to them. They will beat who they're supposed to beat. Again, they'll win the Big Ten and have a number of impressive wins on their resume, but I don't think they'll have as many ranked wins to be the top seed. But still, Ohio State, your 2nd seed in the dance. Your 3rd seed will be Clemson. They're going to lose, I think, that first game of the year to LSU, but I think they'll kind of etch-a-sketch, just kind of shake it up and make us all forget about that because they're going to run the table the rest of the way, win the ACC, win out from there and be one of the hottest teams, I think, in college football heading into the playoff. They will leave no doubt. They'll be your 3 seed. This is where straight seeding becomes a little bit more important to get on board with. A year ago, the 4th seed would have been the 4th highest ranked conference champion. That's not the case this year. The 4th seed in this college football playoff is going to be Texas. SEC runner-up, next best resume, lost in the SEC title game, like I just told you, but I don't think that's going to be something the committee scoffs at all too much based on the other ranked wins they'll have. Texas will be your 4th seed. Your 5th seed is going to be Oregon. Now, Big Ten runner-up. Remember last year how Oregon ran the table, undefeated through the regular season, and then they got to Pasadena, and they showed up there against Ohio State after, 3 weeks of rest and just got boat raced. If you're an Oregon fan, 1, you're probably a little bit bitter, which is fine. 2, I think after that bitterness started to settle, you started to ask yourself, man, was that bye really the best for us? I mean, it would not have been better just to kind of stay in rhythm. I think you get that wish this year when it comes to how you get seeded. You're the 5th seed, meaning you will play a first-round game, meaning you will host a first-round game. So odds for a playoff game should be electric. Sitting out the conference title game with the 6th seed. Now remember, last year the 6th seed was what Penn State also had, and it served them well when it came to their playoff path. Is that the same thing this year? I don't think so, but I do think that if you're Penn State, you're not all that upset by being the 6th seed, and you'll take that rest from the conference title weekend and host a playoff game again in Happy Valley. Texas A&M, I know it's unpopular. That's fine. No issues with that. A&M, they're going to be 10-2. Losses to LSU and Texas, the 2 teams that competed in the SEC championship game. Those might be the best 2 losses in college football. And a good loss is like an ugly phrase. I just feels even weird saying it out loud. But regardless, A&M, with that resume, with those losses, they will be the 7th seed in the college football playoff. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I'm going to tell you my teams at 8 and at 9. I got Georgia at 8, Bama at 9. We'll come back to Bama in a second at number 9. But Georgia, I think they'll have the head-to-head over Bama. And so with them being, I think, 10-2 and Bama also being 10-2, that tiebreaker, the head-to-head, I think the committee goes with Georgia. Now, Bama, they're going to be 10-2 with losses to SEC champ LSU, but the other losses to Georgia. So they'll be there at 9. And not a bad spot to be, but they'll be sitting there ready to go to Athens for their first round of the college football playoff. Now, the bottom half of this, or the bottom, 25% of this, bottom fourth of this, is where it gets a little bit more tricky. Last year, Arizona State had 2 losses after winning the conference and had straight seeding held. Arizona State, the Big 12 champ, would have been the 12th seed in the college football playoff. I don't think that's the way it works this year, but I do think that Baylor is sitting there at the 10th seed. Probably somewhere around 10-2, Big 12 champion. Does it feel a little bit low? Yeah, probably. Probably does, but regardless, you're in the dance. You're not the 12th seed, so you're not playing Oregon first game. But I think that's just kind of the nature of the beast when it comes to how they're being perceived and how the Big 12 is going to shake out here in 2025. A team we have not mentioned once this show, not one time, is going to be there at the 11th spot. Reason why? I think Notre Dame beats Miami that first game of the season. So Notre Dame is going to be your 11th seed. Notre Dame, I think, will go 10-2, but one of those wins will be over Miami. Remember now, Miami I also have going 10-2 if you've kept up with our game-by-game predictions. Miami's playing for the conference championship, but if they don't win the conference championship, which I don't have them doing in this scenario, then you go to, okay, you're probably in tiebreaker mode. I think that tiebreaker falls with Notre Dame. So the importance of that game week 1 with Miami and Notre Dame in Coral Gables or at Hard Rock. I know Hard Rock's not in Coral Gables, but roll with me. In the 305, that's going to, I think, have massive playoff implications. I think Notre Dame gets in the dance at 10-2 because the schedule is not your dad's Notre Dame schedule with the team that they're playing. They find themselves in at the 11th seed. Now, the 12th seed, the G5 rep, we're taking the Sun Belt champs, baby. All right? James Madison, coached by Mr. Bobby Chesney, known as DJ Khaled in the coaching industry. All he does is win. Coached almost like over 150 games or in that territory, won 70% of them. Last year, really good start to the Bobby Chesney era out there in James Madison. Beat North Carolina. It was like a ridiculous game where they just scored 70 to win. They have a huge game early on in the year, Friday night at Louisville. That game is key to this whole playoff complexion. Louisville has to do their job and look good the rest of the way. JMU, you would like to win that game. If you win that game, you feel even better about it. But if you just look good and have that be your only loss, which I'm going to go ahead and call my shot. I think that's the case. James Madison will find himself into the college football playoff, the Fighting PFT commenters, and they'll be that 12th seed in the dance. So let's recap it here. LSU at 1, Ohio State at 2, Clemson at 3, Texas at 4, Oregon at 5, Penn State at 6. A run of 10-2 SEC teams here, 7, 8, 9, A&M, Georgia, and Bama. Big 12 champ Baylor at 10, Notre Dame backdooring their way in here at number 11, and James Madison at 12. That's going to be your 12 playoff teams. Miss me with that SEC bias. We're calling it how we see it over here, all right? Give us your predictions as well. Want to hear from y'all, but that's how we see this whole thing shaking out. So that's who's in. How does the playoff field look? And then who do we have winning the national championship? Let's break it down right now. Our college football playoff field with these 12 teams. It's just, I'm so fired up even saying this out loud. This is how it's going to look. All right, we'll go with first round, kind of give you our matchups. We'll tell you who has the buys, and we'll break down our predictions and tell you who's winning the whole freaking thing in 2025. So if you want to have the script to the 2025 season, this is it right here. College Football Sickos, again, call to action. Make sure you are subscribed. For those of y'all watching the one-off clip right now, appreciate y'all for that. You get a little rematch in that first round with Georgia playing Alabama in Athens. Okay, so the second time, Bama will have gone to Athens during the 2025 season. You'll have Oregon playing James Madison in that 5-12 matchup in the first round. You'll have A&M and Baylor, a little battle of the Brazos, all right, in that 7-10 matchup out there in College Station. Then you'll have Penn State and Notre Dame in the first round out there. And then your teams with the bye are LSU, Texas, Ohio State, Clemson. All right, so let's break it down. We'll start with the left side of the bracket, work our way around. And, this fires me up so much. Let's go game by game here. So Georgia goes and they welcome Bama in that first round. Like I said, second time they play them in Athens. I think Georgia gets them the first time. I think it's tough to beat Kalen DeBoer 2 times in 1 year. I think that defense for Bama is going to be the difference. So I think Alabama beats Georgia in their second round of the entire season, in the first round of the college football playoff, sets up a Bama-LSU game, which we'll revisit in a second. Moving down to the other first-round matchup. Oregon and JMU. I love JMU. I just told you I love Bobby Chesney if you're watching the full-length show. I just think the talent of Oregon, the unfinished business nature of Oregon, I think they get a win in that first round. Famous last words, just assuming the better roster wins, but I'm going to go ahead and say Oregon beats JMU in that first-round matchup. Other first-round matchup, I told you, Battle of the Brazos, old Big 12 game, Baylor and A&M. This will be a fun one, man. Emotions will be high. These teams got history. It'll be a good time. These logos have history. Man, I think Sawyer Robertson finds a way. I really do. I think that the continuity under Dave Aranda is a big difference here. I think the maturity of that football team is a big difference here. A&M returns a lot of production as well. They bring back Marshall Reed as well. They have a lot to like about them. I think that Baylor and the fact that Dave Aranda will have some time to game plan, I think it's going to give Baylor the edge. I think they beat A&M in that first round of the college football playoff. Then Penn State, Notre Dame. This is a rematch from last year's semis. Penn State's the more veteran team here, more experienced quarterback here. I think that they get their third college football playoff win under James Franklin. Very quietly, third college football playoff win for the guy that can't win big games. Funny how that works. They go ahead and advance. So that sets up these matchups here in the next round. LSU and Bama. I told you, I think it's tough to beat Kalen DeBoer twice, but I think Brian Kelly does it. All right. The reason being, I just think LSU and their offense going to have some buzzsaw tendencies to them. I think the firepower is going to be a lot. I think that the fact you got to play Georgia in the first round, too, is going to take something out of you if you're Bama, even when you win that football game. So I'll take LSU to advance to the semis and beat Alabama. Then you're going to have Oregon playing Texas in the next round of the college football playoff, or in this round of the college football playoff, I should say, after they beat JMU, Texas getting the bye. Remember, I told you, Oregon didn't have momentum last year. They weren't in rhythm last year. Not the case this year. I promise you, if there's one thing that is true of Dan Lanning, he's a fixer, he's an adapter. Texas is deep. Texas is talented. I think Oregon beats Texas. I think that they make good on what their mistakes were a year ago in this game, in the same position, the second round of the college football playoff, where they had to bye the first round. I think they take that momentum, and I think that they take their first-year quarterback, and they beat the Texas' first-year quarterback, and they advance to the semis, setting up LSU, Oregon on that side of the bracket. Now, Baylor's going to play Ohio State. I think at this point now, Julian Sayin will be in year 2 mode. Will already have a full year under his belt of 12 games, have a conference title under his belt. Jeremiah Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner Jeremiah Smith, is rocking and rolling. He's running hot. I just think Ohio State has some juice, and they're a team in this spot where they're propelled from their success from the part of the season that's now in the rear view with the Big Ten championship. I think the confidence for that team will be a big deal, and the leadership keeps them from losing that game. I think they beat Baylor and advance to the semis as well. Then you have Clemson and Penn State. Well, Tom Allen Bowl, huh? Tom Allen against his former team in Penn State. I think that Tom Allen's going to have something cooked up for Drew Aller. I really do. I think that the experience of Clemson is too much here. I think Clemson beats Penn State, and they advance to the semis. So take a look at this now. Our semifinals, our final 4 teams, if you will. LSU playing Oregon, Ohio State playing Clemson. This is going to be so. Obviously, this is definitely going to happen, so I'm glad that y'all are tuned in and getting the early jump on what next year is going to be. But these games in and of themselves, these matchups, the storylines here would be just electric. Like LSU and Oregon, 2 teams that have been pushing to make it to the top of the mountain for a minute here, and now they're both on the doorstep of playing for a national championship. Ohio State and Clemson, a throwback of sorts to previous college football semifinal games we used to get. Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence going back and forth. Like, this is going to be awesome. For LSU and Oregon, I think that at this point, again, LSU, I expect a ton of momentum, a ton of confidence. Those portal pieces will have gelled. As much as I like Oregon, they still have some new pieces, and this will be the most pressure they've been under. Same thing for LSU, but I think they will have a little more seasoning to them in this position. With the returning quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier, I'll take LSU to beat Oregon and play for a national championship. Now, who do they see? I think for Ohio State, as much as I love Clemson, I think Ohio State has a touch more firepower, man. I do. And now Clemson's got good receivers. Don't get it twisted with Wesco and Moore. I've told you all about them. I'm a big fan of their work and how they hustle. But, man, like Ryan Day and the leadership that they have, I think that there's some real composure to this football team. It's projecting to the month of January now, but I think there'll be some composure about this football team with a Ryan Day, a Sonny Styles, a Caleb Downs, a Jeremiah Smith. I think them having been in a position like this before will elevate them. I think they'll beat Clemson. So it means you got LSU and Ohio State playing for a national championship, the Joe Burrow Bowl, if you will. I told you earlier in the show, I love everything about Ohio State, even contrary to what they lost. I think that the composure, what I just told you, is going to be a big factor in the making this game. But it's just got that feeling to me, man. It's just got that feeling to me. Kind of a Cajun feel to it. Kind of a Baton Rouge vibe, if you will. So in the national title game, I'm rolling with the Popeyes of college football. Louisiana's Kitchen, Louisiana's football team. I'm taking LSU just like I'm taking the spicy sandwich. They're going to be running hot. It's going to be a good deal. I'm going to go ahead and take Garrett Nussmeier to find a way to get it done. Win the national championship. Brian Kelly, no more talking about what he couldn't do, what he shouldn't do, all this, that, and the national championship. Brian Kelly, put that ring on your finger. Spiced chicken sandwich down my gullet. LSU. National champs. This is good, man. Louisiana's Kitchen. Just like Popeyes, man. It may not be what you ordered with how it looks. It may not be perfect. It may not be 11-1 like I drew it up. But at the end of the day, got a dude pulling the trigger you should trust, that you do trust, that I trust. Just feels like the year, man. LSU, your 2025 national champions. Again, let us know your issues with this. 629-888-3931. Leave us a somewhat efficient voicemail. Keep it under like 30 seconds if you can. But, man, again, this is the time of the year where we can actually look down the barrel of the season, call our shot, and then know that in a matter of weeks, the college football season will start. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So thank you for making this show what it is. Tons of content coming your way. Caden Smith on the ones and twos. Myself, JD PicKell. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Popeyes, not a sponsor, but LSU will be your 2025 national champions, rolling with Louisiana's Kitchen and Louisiana's team. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We will keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Go Tigers.